A federal judge says that he has found probable cause to hold Trump administration officials in contempt of court. That came from U.S. District Judge James Boasberg after the U.S. government violated his orders to turn around planes that were carrying migrants who were deported to El Salvador. The administration has used a wartime law to deport people who the administration claims were members of a Venezuelan gang known as Tren de Araguas, deemed a foreign terrorist organization. NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell has been following all of the legal back and forth. Kelly, the judge said that the court did not make this decision lightly or in haste, but walk us through what else he said about his justification and what all of this could mean for the Trump administration.
Well, noting that he did not make this decision lightly or in haste is important because for days, perhaps even weeks now, when you look at the beginning of this, the court has tried to compel basic answers from government lawyers about the facts of who made decisions, what was the timeline for the deportation flights that left the United States to El Salvador after this judge had made an order that they were not to deport Abreu Garcia. And the administration has been saying that what the Supreme Court has made clear is that these courts cannot interfere with the president's ability to conduct foreign policy. That is an important principle. That is not what the judge says he is asking about. The judge is wanting fact-based questions about timeline, who was in a position of authority, was the order responded to in an appropriate way. So why this matters is that if our entire legal system relies on the parties involved adhering to the court's rulings, following the judge's orders, doing all of those things that are the underpinnings of a sound system, that's at play here. And then, of course, there's so much discussion about Abreu Garcia himself, his particular case. What is the background? Does he have ties to MS-13, as the administration says? They have made many allegations. They have produced no evidence to the court or in a public way where we can evaluate what his ties may or may not be. So this is an important step that the court is trying to assert its authority here. We'll see if the administration follows through and responds, and if it will get to the next level of criminal contempt.
Which is my question, Kelly. I mean, has the Trump administration tipped its hand, in a sense? Have they given any indication of how they're going to react to the judge's order?
Well, there's two ways of looking at that. What the public statements are in sort of the broad community where they're heard in both political context and responding to the specific questions. And then there's what happens within the confines of the court where the lawyers there have to follow the ethics of law and have to deal with specific arguments. So there's sort of two buckets of that. The administration has been very strong in saying that it is confident in its position, that it does not intend to bring Abreu Garcia back, and believes it is on firm footing. At the same time, it is unclear how they will respond to the specific legal things, because the judge is saying so far those government employees, attorneys for the Justice Department, have not been complying in a satisfactory way.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.